All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Network. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. We're going to be talking the Dallas Cowboys with Brandon Laurie from Blogging with the Boys. What's going on, man?
I'm happy to be here. Taylor Swift made her announcement that she's going to be appearing on the Kelsey's podcast. I'd like to say I'm going to be bringing the same amount of audience engagement to this episode, but it remains to be determined whether I or Taylor Swift will be raising the numbers for you guys
I mean, just from dropping her name, we'll immediately do something.
in the
I think
aggregate, right?
either that or my phone will start giving me Taylor Swift ads for her next album or something.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
whatever happens first. So, all right. So before we jump into things though, here, just want to remind everybody to please hit that subscribe and that like button. Leave those comments. We love to hear from you. And jump over to fantasy6pack.net. Become an all access member. Get the award-winning rankings, the draft cheat sheet, the player projections. During the season, we roll out all the great DFS and betting content as well. So use promo code F6PPods to save 15%. All right, Dallas Cowboys and so as you can tell back here, not my favorite team. Sorry. I'm
It's okay.
rocking the Commanders. Yeah, it's all good though. Just a lot of fun. All right, so start here with the quarterback room, Dak Prescott. I know the injury got him last year at the end, but it wasn't his best year. It was a bit of a struggle with him. It felt like. Are we gonna get him, back rocking and rolling like we've seen in the past, where it's 600 pass attempts and just putting up the numbers?
Yeah, I think so. To your point, many people forget that before Dak went down with the injury, like the offense really wasn't doing too well outside of that week one game. And even week one against the Browns, like Dak didn't really have his best statistical game. He had a great game all around, but it was really not anything to walk home about from what we saw the year prior when he was an MVP finalist. Like I truly believe Dak has everything at his disposal this year to get back to that level for a few reasons. One, there's continuity in the offense. I think when you look at a veteran quarterback, I can't believe he's entering year 10. It feels like just yesterday he was a rookie, lighting up the world in 2016, but he's entering year 10 in the NFL. And the biggest thing for a lot of these veteran quarterbacks is continuity in the offense. Yes, you do have guys like Aaron Rodgers who can kind of flip the script and go from Mike McCarthy to Mike LaFleur or Matt LaFleur rather, and have a huge MVP back-to-back season campaign. But I think for someone like Dak, who is known to be a little bit more of a bus driver, maybe not on the level of Aaron Rodgers, I think continuity is key. And you get that with Brian Schottenheimer coming in, not only as head coach, but of course, as offensive play caller. So, what does that mean for the offense? I think that Mike McCarthy got a little stagnant towards the end. I think everybody who watched the Cowboys could agree with that. There were highlights and there were lowlights, but I think there was more bad than good or left to be desired. I think with Brian Schottenheimer coming in, he's talked about being a lot more multiple. He's talked about how sort of the playbook will be open. There's going to be motion in the Cowboys offense. And I think maybe you'll see Dak run a little bit more. And I say maybe because you can only go up from zero. And Dak was certainly not certainly somebody who has been running the past few years, and in fact might have injured his hamstring last year because he was running a little bit more in that Atlanta game. But there has been a little bit more RPO action in training camp. He's certainly slimmed down to be a little bit more elusive in the pocket, so maybe that opens up the door for a couple more rushing yards. But I think with CeeDee Lamb, with George Pickens, and of course the continuity on offense, I really truly believe he's going to get back closer to what we saw in 2023 rather than what we saw in 2024.
Yeah, I think that the Pickens signing is from what I could tell this weekend at the Fantasy Football Expo is definitely catching steam. People are starting to go, wait a minute, Pickens is actually pretty good. We should
Yeah.
probably stop ignoring this. And he's climbing up draft boards. Gonna switch things up on you here and just stay with this receiver room. How has that uh, chemistry between Dak and Pickens looked?
It's been awesome. Everything that we've seen as far as the highlights in training camp, even just today, there was a post from Cowboys beat reporter John Machota where Pickens just high points the ball, snatches it out of the air as he's going to the ground. I think that's exactly what you want from Dak to George Pickens is these 50-50 contested catches that normally in the past, a lot of guys like a Jalen Tolbert or Jonathan Mingo or other guys who are still kind of learning the offense and growing as players, maybe they drop the ball. Even CeeDee Lamb has struggled a few times to start the season and even in the postseason as
Hmm.
being this guy who is being consistent. Now, he's, of course, a top 5 fantasy football player. There's no denying that. But you need somebody to be that complement to not only alleviate looks from CD's standpoint, but also to elevate Dak's play. And I think George Pickens checks all the boxes. When you look at Pickens' numbers coming from Pittsburgh, not only the quarterbacks that he had to play with Dak being the best one, but over the past 3 years, he had 52 receptions, 63 receptions, and 59 receptions with over 100 targets just his final 2 years in Pittsburgh. I think those numbers are definitely going to be beaten this year, with it probably being closer to 60, 70 receptions and definitely over 100 targets. We've seen in the past with Dak when he has had top 2 wide receivers in Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, both of those guys went over 100 targets back in 2021. So it's not like it's not in Dak's wheelhouse to feed both guys because they're both equally talented. The one area I think Pickens is definitely going to improve, though, this year is definitely in the red zone and also scoring touchdowns. When you look at his career with Pittsburgh, he had 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, and 3 touchdowns, respectively, over his first 3 seasons in Pittsburgh. And I think just when you look at him taking over the role for, let's say, Jalen Tolbert last year, Jalen Tolbert had 7 touchdowns. I mean, way above what you would expect for somebody of his
Yeah.
caliber. And George Pickens is way better of a football player than what you have in Jalen Tolbert. So I think that you're going to see the touchdown numbers go up, which of course is great for fantasy owners. And I just think that anytime a player is in a contract year, like for me, I'm also a Yankee fan. So I also come back to Juan Soto signing with the Yankees or being traded to the
Hmm.
Yankees last year. If it works out long term, fantastic. If this is a way for it's a win-win where George Pickens can maximize his, financial security in the future and the Cowboys make it to the Super Bowl, I think it's a win-win. You walk away and everybody's happy. And what does that mean? I think fantasy owners are going to be very happy with that sort of mentality of I need to prove myself. I need to prove myself as one of the top wideouts in the NFL. And he's been great with the media. He's been great in the locker room. So all the stuff and narrative coming out of Pittsburgh too hasn't really been a problem. I'm waiting for that shoe to drop to make sure that when those instances happen on the sidelines or off the field, that he can kind of corral himself a little bit. But he's right next to Dak Prescott in the locker room. So I think that he has a great guy to lean on. Dak can help him. He can help Dak. So I think it's going to be a great relationship, specifically from a fantasy side of things moving forward this year.
And so you kind of already went to the second part of the question where like kind of what a target share do you expect Pickens to have? I wonder what the effect of this is going to have on Lamb's target share. He's been among the like league leader in targets for like 3 straight years now.
Yep.
Does that come down and maybe we should be lowering our expectations of him just a little bit?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. He's going to do great things. He's a guy that you actually have to feed a lot in order to really kind of feel his production. If he's a guy that we've seen against the 49ers in the past in the regular season or in the postseason, if you're only getting him 8 targets, 9 targets in a game, it just isn't good enough because maybe it comes down to 6 catches, 7 catches. Like you need to feed CeeDee Lamb. And I think that there's going to be opportunities for him in the screen game. There's going to be opportunities for him on the inside and the outside. So I think just his versatility as a player, having Pickens be on the outside, I think is going to open up a lot more opportunities for him to see single coverage, to not be double, triple teamed all the
Mhm.
time. So I think I really wouldn't be worried about it from a fantasy standpoint. I'd still draft him, like I said, in the top 10. If you can get him and pick 5, pick 6, I think you're just sitting pretty. But I think he's going to
Yeah.
go way before then. And rightfully so. I really wouldn't be worried about it at all. And same thing, a lot of people are worried about Brian Schottenheimer being a run first offensive coordinator. We've just seen so much in the past with him in his time in Seattle and also the weapons at his disposal. How can you not be a pass first team when you have Lamb and Pickens just guaranteed for 1 year? We don't know what the
Yeah.
future holds for Pickens in Dallas, so you have to maximize that talent. How you do that is through the air. And so I think CeeDee Lamb's going to be fine.
Yeah, no, makes sense to me. So outside of Lamb and Pickens, who's like the third one of the pecking order here? It could be a tight end.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I love Jake Ferguson. He had a down year by his standards, not only from a fantasy standpoint, but by his standards, he had a down year last year. I know week 1, he suffered almost like a hyperextended knee that really kind of hampered his
I
production.
remember that.
And then he was also dealing with some concussion issues as well, too. Like, I think the one stat people forget, and I forget where I heard this or if I saw it online, but in 2023, when he was healthy and Prescott was healthy, Ferguson ran 94 routes in the red zone, the most among tight ends, which was a 26.6 target rate. I mean, that's an insane number for tight ends. And we know Dak Prescott loves throwing the seam ball, whether that is in the red zone or over the field, over the middle of the field. So I think having Pickens and Lamb on the outside is just going to open up everything in the middle for Ferguson. And he's also proven to be not only like a guy who can get the contested catch, but he has some yards after catch ability as well too. He's not like later years Zach Ertz where he'll catch the ball and fall down. That's just not in his game. He wants to be that guy who stiff arms people, knocking people over, almost like a young Diet Coke Travis Kelce. So I think for him, he's going to be the guy that gets a huge target share this year in that pecking order of 1, 2, 3. He's definitely third on the list. And not to mention, too, they just signed him to a 4-year extension. So I think he needs to prove that he's worth that. And I think he knows that. Plus, he's getting married this year. I think sort of that kind of wife energy is going to rub off on him a little bit, too. And I think he just wants to kind of come into his own as one of the league's top tight ends because he's shown that his arrow was up the last few years and then kind of just came down last year. And even Schottenheimer has talked about him glowingly, saying that last year was just an aberration. Like he knows that he's going to be a better player. So I think Ferguson is sort of the next guy after those top two.
Yeah. All right. The backfield, it's complicated.
Where do we begin, right?
Right. It's you guys in Jacksonville. It's kind of like, I don't know. There's 3 of them. Does that mean there's none? Because that's kind of what it feels like sometimes with Sanders and Blue and Javonte Williams. Like who's kind of leading this backfield right now?
We know that committees have become very popular in the NFL. Like, I mean, look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has talked about how they like having all 4 of those guys. I mean, if you have a running back from Tampa Bay in your lineup, who do you start? Is it Sean Tucker one week? Is it Rashad White? And then is it Bucky Irving? I mean, you just don't know who to go with. And for Dallas, it's sort of the same thing. I really do believe that Javonte Williams is going to get the lion's share to start the year. I just think that the Cowboys really love him. Stephen Jones talked about him glowingly last week in an interview, saying that he's really, really excited about him. When you hear 1 really, that means the guy likes him. But when you hear 2 reallys, that means he really, really likes him.
Okay.
So I think Javonte Williams, he's going to get the lion's share to start. But I also would throw Miles Sanders in the mix as sort of that 1A to 1B. He kind of, a lot of people didn't think that he would be this type of starter contingent for the Cowboys this year. I think a lot of people were kind of writing him off. The Cowboys signed a few years back Ronald Jones kind of in his later years, and we were just saying, you know what, that's just a camp body. If you can get anything out of him, great. If not, that's totally fine. I thought Miles Sanders was going to be the same way, but he's actually shown quite an explosive part of his game. He's sort of turned back the clock a little bit. Now he's dealt with a little bit of a knee injury as of late, so I don't know. He's probably going to start working back into the fold this week, and we'll see if he can kind of suit up for this weekend in the preseason. But I think all you need to know is that Javonte Williams sat out in the preseason game 1 when they actually needed guys to play in that game. They actually had Malik Davis, who they just re-signed the day before, take snaps in the game instead of Williams. So I think that tells you a lot. And he's a 3-down back. He's shown that not only could be a great back on first and second down, but he's also a pass catching back as well too. Schottenheimer wants that pass catching back element to his game, which I think then opens up the door for Jaden Blue to potentially have some success down the line. And we could talk about him in a little bit. But to me, if you're going to be trying to circle a guy right now for the Cowboys running back room to start weeks 1 through 4, 1 through 5, start with Javonte Williams and then just take it a lottery ticket in the 6th, 7th round if you want, and then see what you got.
Yeah. All right. So I asked this to everybody who comes on, and we're just curious of a name of a player you've seen at camp who's a little under the radar, maybe not as well known amongst, when you're talking about like Lamb and Pickens, obviously those guys were very well known, but somebody under the radar that fantasy managers maybe wouldn't draft, but just kind of keep on their watch list, keep in their back pocket to gain an advantage.
Yeah, I would start with Jaden Blue, kind of what I was alluding to, that we've seen in the past that the Cowboys are running with whoever it is week 1. Let's say it's Ezekiel Elliott or of last year and then also a few years ago. But then all of a sudden a guy creeps up later in the year that is proven to be the more explosive back. We saw that last year with Rico Dowdle and then also a few years ago with Tony Pollard. I think the Cowboys want to have that complement of what we've seen from the Detroit Lions and a bunch of other teams where you have this sort of ground and pound attack with a heavier guy, and then you have that explosive element to the run game. And I think Jaden Blue has the more potential to be that home run hitter. He was really taking off the last few weeks in training camp after this narrative came out that he was a quote unquote lazy player. I think he's sort of defunct that. He's let his practice habits dictate that a little bit more too. And everybody isn't created equal when it comes from from the college game to the NFL level. So I think he had a little bit of maturity to go through, and I think he still has to do that. But he was showing off in camp where a lot of people were talking about maybe he should be the guy week one. So I think he was sort of pressing Javonte Williams for that starting role, but then he got hurt with this ankle injury, and that sort of hampered him a little bit. So I think they'll work him back, work him in slowly. A lot of experienced NFL head coaches don't trust rookies right off the bat at running
Mm-hmm.
back. So I think he'll have to earn it, but I think he's going to earn it quickly with the potential to just take 60-yard, rushes to the house. So he has that type of explosive ability. And he was also one of the best pass catching backs coming out of the draft this year, too. If you go and watch his Texas tape, I mean, here was a guy who was catching and running wide receiver routes as a running back. So he's shown that he has that element to his game. If he can kind of just find the hole and navigate the running lanes a little bit better, I think you're going to see him take off the second half of the year. So definitely keep an eye for him on the waiver wire. Or maybe just take a lottery ticket, stash him on your bench for later in the year too. But the one guy that I would say that I'm very excited about, I know a lot of fans are too, is Kevontae Turpin. And not only from
Mm-hmm.
his special teams ability, but we knew that when the Cowboys brought him in a few years ago, like he was the USFL MVP for the New Jersey Generals. And he was just a Swiss Army knife for them, not only on special teams, but also on offense. And it just hasn't really translated to Dallas the way that a lot of fans hoped. Granted, you're transitioning from the USFL level to the NFL level. A lot of things change. The level of competition changes, offensive terminology. So I think he's spent the last few years refining his game as a wide receiver. And I think you're starting to see he's coming into his own a lot more, not only because he finally has the offense down, but he's also has a great wide receivers coach in Junior Adams, who's worked with Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, a lot of like pro young guys who are very talented in the league right now. So he has him to kind of teach him a lot more about the game, how to run better routes. And last year, Turpin kind of showed a little bit more as a wide receiver. And Schottenheimer has talked about him glowingly, not only this year, but if you go back and listen to Schottenheimer last year talk about him, he wanted to get him more looks in the backfield. He wanted to get him more looks on offense. So I think with Mike McCarthy out of the picture, Schottenheimer can kind of be like Ben Johnson, like going into the dens and the depths of the office and kind of just scribbling plays for him underneath the desk. And I think Kevontae Turpin can be that guy for him. So it might not happen right away, but I would expect him to be closer to that wide receiver 3 on the depth chart than what we've seen in the past. So if it's a guy that you just want to hit that star on the waiver wire, just keep an eye on him. Maybe you do draft him and leverage as a trade bait candidate later in the year. I think that's a guy that you could start seeing rising up a little bit more as we get closer to the regular season.
Yeah, I know. I know. He definitely smoked my Commanders last year. So
I had to bring him up because of the
I
spin move
know.
against it.
I
But
I know. I
listen, I
know.
will say this. I will say this. The Commanders and the Giants are way better fantasy options this year, more so than in previous years, not only from what they did last year, but of course, what the Giants took on. So I think all
Yeah,
the offenses in the NFC East this year, I wouldn't be afraid to draft any of the players. I think there's going to be an
absolutely.
opportunity for success for all of them, which you couldn't say over the last few seasons. It was usually just the Eagles and the
No.
Cowboys. So I'm very happy for everybody. I just when the NFC East wins, we all win.
Yeah, it's fun to see them all be very, very good again. Um, all right, man. I want to thank you for coming on. This was great information. Before we close out, those, give you a chance to promote yourself. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, on Twitter at Brandon is right. That is WRITE, and everything that I do on Blogging the Boys. And I also on Substack have a press coverage newsletter, is what it's called, for all things football. So you can hit that subscribe button. It's free right now. I'm not trying to charge anybody any money as we're getting it off the ground. So, like I said, the press coverage newsletter, and then everything that I do on Blogging the Boys. It's great Cowboys content. We have a good bunch of fantasy writers over there as well too. So if anybody's looking for some little Cowboys nuggets here and there throughout the year, definitely check that out as well.
Sounds good. Definitely will, man. All right. Thank you for coming, everybody. And hit that little it should be popping up right around here, I think, at some point. The playlist for all the rest of these videos. You're not gonna want to miss them. See ya.